Did you guys have time to look at my solution?
I
A
did.
little bit.
Wanna go through it?
I think for the benefit of all, maybe you could walk us through, because for me there are some concepts there that I'm familiar with, but when I implemented, I kind of forgot not using them lately. But as others, as none of us use those, I think uh, we can say that they are new for the most of us, or we didn't know about them. So maybe a quick walkthrough from your part will benefit all.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Brave tab. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so, I organized a bit. It's my code is in course one. So basically, Ansible can be written in two ways. One way is, as most of you guys did, create one test file and run it through. Others is to get to do it in a more modular way. And more modular, it means that you have a folder in for variables. Then you have a folder for roles. For each role, for example, I set up a core role, a deployment role, an Nginx role, and a deployment role. And let's say not this one, but Nginx, for example, it has a task, has a handlers. It can also have a default folder where you are setting up the default variables or facts as Ansible likes to tell them. And this by default is what gives you is for example, if you need to expand this Ansible task, you will not have to rewrite all the tasks, but you can reuse roles in a future. And by default, for each folder, Ansible expects to have a main.yaml file, and this will be the default file in each rows. And yeah, this is the startup YAML file where I said, okay, run this playbook against the web server host group. Become true, it means that yes, use sudo access, assuming that your user have sudo rights. The user that you are connect with, and run these rows in this order. Okay, so let's take a look at the core rows. What it does is just, as probably most of you do, it's updating because I created a virtual machine, and that came with a blank Debian 12. So I needed to update it, then install some dependencies. I needed a curl, I needed a GPG, I needed CA certificates, LSB release wouldn't need it because I used the Ansible facts instead of this, Debian keyring, and the Git, because the VM that I used did not come with the Git by default. And then I went to Nginx. And Nginx, honestly, I don't like to deploy whatever comes with the Debian or Fedora, whatever the default Nginx. I like to build the latest one from source. Actually, not from source, from the nginx.org repository, and that needs to add the apt key and then add the repository. And this is where the Ansible facts I used instead of LSB release. It actually gives the same thing. Then use the update cache to make sure that after I install the repository, it runs an apt update. And then deployed Nginx, and I run systemd to make sure that the Nginx is started. And actually, this only is enabling it. And I use this notify to start Nginx. What does notify mean? It triggers the handlers. And the handler is the same system, the module where I say the name Nginx and the state, make sure that the Nginx is started. And once the Nginx is started, I deploy the code. And what I did, I cloned this repository in a temporary folder. And because I didn't want to put all the files that are in this repository in the web root, I just copied the index.html in the place in the Nginx's web root. And this is with the remote source. Yes, you tell the Ansible that the file what you want to copy, it's already on the destination server. If you have it locally, then you don't have to use this remote source, because and then Ansible will look for the file on the local computer and upload it into the destination. I did put in here also the notify restart Nginx. This wasn't necessary, but for some reason I put it there. And then I made a check website, because every time you deploy something, you have to check it. You have to make sure that you are running it, that it's running. And this is just running a curl on the website, and is saving the content as a true, and it registers a fact as a check, and then it says fair when hello DevOps Croissant is not in the check.content this folder. And then I did a cleanup, and I deleted the folder which I uploaded the Git repository from, because it wasn't needed. So I don't like to leave garbage on my servers. So I did this cleanup. What I could have done before is to add yet another task for example, in the case that the check does not validate, is not working for some reason, revert back to an older version of the application so that you make sure that you always have a working application. Just to make sure, just to show you that this was my index.html. So I was looking for this message. You can actually, you don't have to look for the whole message. You can look for one word inside that you know that you are looking for. Do you have any questions? Anyone? Okay, I'm assuming that no questions. Okay, then let's stop the sharing. Oh, you didn't see anything? You should have told me. Okay, next time.
But we did. At least I've seen your
Yeah, but
screen.
Emil wrote in the chat that to adjust the zoom or resolution a bit.
The Zoom, yeah. Okay. Okay, I resolved that on my side, but yeah. Yeah, maybe next time it will be helpful to have
Okay, I have a big
bit of
screen,
more
so
Zoom.
people that
Yeah.
works on a laptop, maybe they have a. I will increase it. Okay, so as I explained last week, we will be jumping into containers today. Who has some experience with containers? I know some of you do because I've seen it in your homeworks. Okay, question is who doesn't know anything about containers?
Yeah, sorry, I thought the last question was good to ask.
Everyone has some idea? Okay. Anyways,
Bare minimum.
what are the containers? So the containers are a form of operating system virtualization. They package up an application and all its dependencies into a single unit that can run consistently on any infrastructure. Unlike virtual machines, which emulate an entire operating system, containers share a host operating system and operating system's kernel and make them significantly more lightweight and more efficient. Key benefits of the containers are portability and consistency. What the consistency means? It's, for example, I run a code, whatever code. I'm pretty sure that everyone in here who work with the code happen to have this situation when you develop a code, then someone else wants to use it, and they say it's not working for me. And what is the general answer for that? It's working for me. And this is what the containers are fixing. The containers make sure that every user have exactly the same operating system, exactly the same packages, list of packages, libraries, code running on their containers. Therefore, there is no, how to say, unknowns in the setup. And that makes the consistency, because having the same operating system, same code, same libraries, same packages will make sure that your container will run exactly the same way as my container does. Resource efficiency, because the containers does not load up the whole operating system. They don't run other services like than what is necessary. It improves development deployment workflow. Uh, let's do a comparison with virtual machines. What are the virtual machines? So virtual machines usually use a hypervisor like VMware, Hyper-V, KVM, whatever else is out there still. To emulate a hardware, each virtual machine runs its own full operating system in top of the virtualized hardware. This means that each virtual machine has its own kernel, libraries, and application. It provides a strong isolation because each virtual machine is completely separated from the others and the host operating system. Therefore, if one virtual machine crashes, it won't affect any other virtual machines that might be running on that hypervisor. Virtual machines have a significant resource overhead because each runs a full operating system. This includes all the packages and kernel and services that are configured to run into that virtual machine. And they are generally large because they have to have the whole operating system under it. And also startup time takes longer because they need to load up the full kernel and start up all the applications that are configured to run and services that are configured to run in that operating system. What about containers? So as I said, containers share the host operating system. They package only the application and this dependency that should be running, and nothing else is running into a single unit. This makes them much more lightweight. Containers provide a process level isolation. They are isolated from each other, but share the underlying operating system kernel. The resource usage of the containers are a lot less because the containers does not need to handle. Usually containers don't handle more than one service. They only have one specific service, and the resource usage is done for that specific service and nothing else. Containers are a lot smaller than the operating system, than the virtual machines, because again, they don't have to have the full operating system running on them. And the container starts in seconds, unlike the virtual machines. Where are containers used? They are usually used in microservice architecture, in cloud native applications, or can be used in on-premise deployments. If any of you have any questions at any time, you can always stop me. So, some concepts about containers. Containers are running of images. And we need to build the images. Usually images, and because we are in DevOps, images are built using code. And what code means? It means that we have a file, in this case called a Docker file, that have a list of commands that has been run, and that after every command was run successfully, it ends up into a container that will be saved as an image. And from that point onward, that image can be used somewhere to deploy that container running that application. And the images are stored in image registries, like GitHub. GitHub can store the images, or Docker Hub, or Quay.io, or for AWS, they have ACR, Amazon Container Registry. Google has its own Google Container Registry, GCR. No, Amazon has ECR, it's Elastic Container Registry. Azure has the ACR. Yeah, those are the most popular registries. I think that pretty much every hosting provider has some registry, and they name it somehow. Uh, Containers can be managed manually, or if you have a production environment based on containers, you have to have an orchestrator that would manage the containers running your application. And orchestrators used to be Docker Swarm, was very used at one point, and then Kubernetes came along, and pretty much now Kubernetes took over the whole image. There are here and there some companies that are still using Docker Swarm, but most of them, if they already didn't, but they will transition to Kubernetes. Containers can run in under multiple runtime options. For example, everything started with Docker. Docker is a company that decided to leverage the containers. And since they were the first one, everyone started to use them. Then, the runtime was, I think, Docker Shim. And then Cloud Native came along and they said, okay, let's make it open library. And came up with Containerd, a set of rules that were that decided, okay, if you are running containers or you are running a company that runs containers, or you create containers, you should have to make it more to make your container runtime second, I have a lapsus. Uh, Compatible with everything else, you should follow these rules. And they came up with containerd. And then Docker decided to drop Docker shim, and they said, okay, then we will also follow containerd. And then Kubernetes came in place, and some of the big companies said, okay, let's build a runtime for Kubernetes. And then Google, Red Hat, Oracle, and some other companies joined the force together, and created Cryo. But Cryo wasn't picked up as much, and I think at this moment only OpenShift is the only one that is using Cryo. Everyone else is using containerd. Then Docker decided to change their policies and to not be free anymore. And they limited the account the downloads for, I don't know, something like 100,000 downloads per IP. And for the rest, they required some login or authentication. And the authentication was okay because it's free for developers. It's free for small companies up to, I think, $1 million profit. And even if you are bigger than that, the license is not very expensive. It's something like $10, $15 per month. So everyone could afford it, but some people didn't like it. And then they made Podman, which runs more or less the same way as Docker, but it has some benefits. Like Docker requires root access to run it. Podman does not require root access. It can be run by any user container under Podman. Okay, so what is the future of the containers? It is from my point of view, it's an emerging trend in container technology. It will not go away. Serverless is starting to pick up. Every hosting provider offers a serverless solution, which either be a container based on Docker containers or orchestrated with Kubernetes. AI and machine learning are mostly using containers because they can leverage the host hardware and can run multiple processes than if you would be running them on locally. Okay, any questions?
No.
How about do you guys know how Docker containers are built or Docker images? Yes, no?
You said with a Docker file, or I misunderstood?
No, yeah, it's a Docker file. But what is a Docker file? Or how does it look? We know it is a file that contains a command. It contains a list of commands that would be. Oh yes, and then for Docker, for that, let me. If you decide to have multiple services in containers, what you do? You deploy multiple containers, and but those containers have to talk to each other, and then they come up with Docker Compose. That's what it does. It's a YAML format of rules that would you organize the services. You tell the dependencies of the service. For example, you have I don't know, blogging engine work on WordPress, for example. It requires a web server. It requires a MySQL database. Therefore, you have to have at least two containers. And the two containers has to talk to each other. And because easy way would be, okay, let's publish some ports from the Docker containers. Do you guys know how Docker Compose is working? Hmm?
I do not.
Okay. One second. Let me do some cleaning in here. Okay, I am going to share a window. Is it big enough?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you all see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is basically a Docker Compose file. It requires a version. Usually, nowadays is 3 dot something, and there are services. And under the services, you set up some rules, like in this case, a database server, which has a Docker image of MySQL. And in this case, they are using the latest MySQL image. And they say that, okay, if the restart policy is always, that means if the container crashes or stops, restart it. And Since the MySQL image requires some variables in order to set up the database access, they added the environment option that would have these variables with MySQL root password, MySQL database, MySQL user, MySQL password. The root password is usually just for you, and then MySQL database is where the application would be starting. MySQL username is the user that would connect, you would be using to connect to the MySQL database from the application. And then they created a service called WordPress, which has a dependency on the database service. What it means that it only starts when the database is already up and or it's up and running. It has the image WordPress latest, also has the restart policy always. They have exported the port 8080, and they say that okay, use this WordPress host DB, these environments in order to connect to the database. So WordPress DB host is the DB, is the service name of the database service. As you can see, the database service does not have any ports exposed because the database should not be accessed from outside this application, but they are exposing the ports inside the Docker network. Also, they tell it, okay, use this database password, credential, and this database name. They also set the volumes, what the volume mean, that in a containerized application, you can mount a volume from your host that would be working inside your container. And in this case, they also included phpMyAdmin. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what is that. Is a MySQL management application that would use the database hostname and the MySQL user. And they created a persistent volume for the MySQL database so that if the compose Docker compose when you put data into the WordPress, it will save somewhere, and if you have to restart your Docker compose, you will not have to you will not lose the data. So this is a volume. Usually it's creating a volume in var lib container something. And you save it as a file. Preferably you save it as a Docker compose. Let me give it. Docker compose.yaml, and let me start my Docker. Is this big enough? and you generally start it with Docker Compose up. And if you are running it with Docker Compose up, then it will start pulling those images.
We see the Docker file if you...
What?
We still see your Docker file. Are you doing a demo?
1 second, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to change the share screen because
And maybe if relevant, maybe show how to run it because that was not in the recording.
okay, then I have to switch.
Mhm.
What is that daemon mode? Okay.
Yes, it's okay now. Was just can you
I am. And maybe if you can explain us, but also what that means. I think this will help to add to the channel or to send them somewhere. This problem. Huh? From where to take the context, right? Or where also the Docker file resides. No, how does it do that without cloning? How does it do without cloning? Ah, okay, okay. I understand. Okay, so it closes the container. Okay, and the same you can give it with minor f different uh, folder where the Docker file is, right? I mean a different Docker file. Yeah, yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's a nice feature actually. I didn't know. Why I mentioned about the minus f. The question I have is, uh, then the relative paths inside the Docker file are relative to where the Docker file is, or from where you run the build command, the Docker build. Okay. Oh, uh, understand. And that in the Docker file, the paths are relative to that context path. Hmm. Hmm. And you can omit this, right? So you can not specify it, and then is the current folder, right? Ah, so it's mandatory, even better. Then it's no confusion. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, just then you need to use the minus F.
No question from my side.
No questions.
So,
You will write down the requirements for the homework, right? Okay, thank you.
You mean something like having like a file watcher, and when something gets changed recursively in from the start? Yes. Okay, so that's what you wanted. Okay. Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
so means now whichever homeworks you are giving, after particular deadline. So if today you are giving first assignment, then after 1 week, can we get a solution that of video recording how that solution can be implemented, so that I am a beginner. So Okay, got it. Okay. Means, can you just means a video recording of implementation of homework would be helpful. So, like,
I think
because
in the next call, I think like in this one, Zozo will go over his implementation, and that will be recorded, right, Zozo? And I assume that's what you are referring that you will need, right?
exactly, correct, correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All this recording, Zozo will add though to the channel, so you can access them. Mhm.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.